do Christians and Muslims worship the same God? Well, I think that the Christians are more likely to say they don't think so. They're more likely to say no, because to worship the God of the Christians, you've got to worship him through his name, Jesus, the name of his son, Jesus. And he says you come to him through that Jesus. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. So you come to that God of the Christians through Jesus Christ. So, and he says, no man can come to the Father except through me. And if that's true, then everyone who will come to the God of the Christians will have to come through Jesus Christ. So the question will be more appropriate for the Muslims. Do you and the Christians worship the same God? And the onus will be on the Muslim to answer it and explain whether or not the God of the Muslims is the God of the Christians. But here is another thing, and more important thing. Are there different gods therefore? Do the Christians have their God and the Muslims have their God, and then others have, their gods, the Hindu, their gods, and so on and so forth? Or is there one God? Paul said, there be lords many and gods many, but we know that there's only one God. So there's only one God. Now, that God must prove himself to us. We're not the ones to decide there should be one God. There could have been many. What's important is for the real God, whoever he is, to prove himself to man and say, introduce himself as God with proof. Now, the reason for Christianity is that the Christians believe that God has proved himself in Jesus Christ by raising him from the dead. The resurrection of Jesus is proof that God sent him. There's got to be proof. There's got to be proof. If God sent him, you know what God is? The word God is a big term. You're dealing with a supernatural being that's so big and out of this world. So how can you know if he's real or not? How can you know if you're dealing with the right God or not? How can you know? He's got to introduce himself. He's got to prove himself. And we in Christianity believe that by the resurrection of Jesus Christ, God proved himself to have sent him. And that the message that Jesus brought to the world is real. And another big thing about Jesus is the fact that apart from his resurrection, he didn't die again. He ascended into heaven in the presence of those who watched him. And this is attested to in history. They watched him ascend, and they looked at him with their eyes open. He didn't suddenly disappear. No, they saw him rise. And he ascended gradually and went through the clouds. And no human being ever had that happen. And no one has had it since. So, Jesus has proof to have come from God. And the message that Jesus brought was that there was only one God. And that God sent him. And he said he was going to die. And that God will raise him from the dead the third day. And then he was raised from the dead the third day. So, that's proof positive that God sent Jesus. And that God is the only true God.